When the choice seems to be to tear down the church
or build a wall around it,
we aim to walk the narrow road of nuance
through the wilderness between the warring factions
and try to figure out what it means
to love God
and people well.
Hey folks, this episode we are talking with Nao Glover, continuing our series on art made by people of faith. Nao is a musician and a writer and works in the marketing field, but one of the main reasons we wanted to talk to her is she is the editor of HM Magazine. HM has been around for, I want to say more than 30 years now. It's definitely more than 20. But has covered all the developments in heavy music of various kinds and has focused specifically on heavier music made by people of faith. And before the internet became the place that you went to find music, it was one of the primary outlets through which you could find heavier or more extreme kinds of music made by people of faith. But we talked with her about her general perspective on art because she had a really interesting master's thesis that we came across on her website and a really good blog post as well that we referenced. But we'll put links to her site in the show notes. We had a really great conversation with her about the nature of art and how we as kind of sub-creators under God should think about making art, and then the role that music and also her current work with HM kind of tie into all that. It's a really great conversation. We enjoyed the heck out of it. Let's dig in. It's funny, Ryan and I were in a couple of bands together, or was it just one? I can't freaking remember.
I don't know. You managed my band for a while, the first
right.
one, and then we played together, yeah.
Well, Ryan was on bass in the band that we played together in, and Ryan doesn't play bass, so...
I don't.
That's the story. That is
why
the
not?
story. It happened to me in a band. It happened to our bassist in the band.
It's like a rite of passage, isn't it?
I know. It is.
I think I ended up, you just pick up whatever's laying around, whatever you need doing.
Yeah.
Yep.
I was listening yesterday to the interview that Black Sheep did with Dallas Taylor from Maylene, and he was talking about those early days and like, I didn't have him pegged as a keyboards guy, but he was apparently.
Yep.
If you don't think I am stoked beyond belief at whatever is about to happen in the Maylene camp, you would be dead wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I'm excited about a lot of stuff that's happening in music. It feels like a lot of bands are, I don't know, missing something that they used to have. So I feel like there's a lot of resurgence right now, and I'm excited. I'm here for it.
Yes. So am I. Like I'm an undisclosed number in my 30s. And so I remember, when you would drive to the store and buy a CD and it wasn't online as much. And I remember when MySpace was still something that was actually helpful. And so there's a lot of me that's maybe just being an old man, but these kids in their TikTok or whatever, or even just like writing for the algorithm kind of thing, where the way that Spotify, for example, will prioritize some songs over another, and just that's not the way that I grew up interacting with music. And I'm glad that there are still other folks out there who had a similar experience who are still making stuff in some way or another.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, there are definitely people who write for the algorithm, and it's like, who's your audience, man?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we talked a little bit about that on I guess it was our last episode that we haven't put out yet, but the things people write in order to write the few things they really want to, kind of this obligation to meet this so I can do what I want.
That's how I feel about Marvel. I know that's like a side step, but I feel like they make a whole freaking movie just for the last scene to get to the next one.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Or they'll or make an entire show just to get a character onto the screen so that they can have a movie about them or whatever.
Yep.
Yeah,
they make a lot of money doing it.
Yeah, you can respect the strategy to a degree, I guess. So maybe it's the same with music, but I'm definitely in that camp too. I miss the music that has impact because it was written to have impact.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
and
go ahead.
To your point, Taylor, I thought about, I remember going into stores and just sitting and looking to see what artwork I thought looked the coolest and then buying that CD, That's how I got turned on to a lot of the bands I loved, even like Ass Cities and Emery and some of them, it was artwork.
Yep. And me, it was Circa Survive.
Yeah.
And Scary Kids, Scaring Kids,
Mhm.
you know. I bought a lot of those albums without ever hearing them.
Oh yeah, that's a Scary Kid, Scary. I came across that one for that reason. I just thought the artwork was cool. I was like, I'll give it a
Yeah.
shot.
Yep.
And then you turn it on, and that first song is just like, okay, good choice.
Yeah.
Sometimes it wasn't a good choice, but it was always, so gratifying when you turn it on. It's like, yes, good.
Yep.
Well, and also the commitment of actually buying it to hear it.
Mm-hmm.
You couldn't really, or even when digital stuff first came in, a lot of times the whole album wouldn't be available. You might get 2 or 3 songs, and you still had to buy it to download it. Even you had to commit to it.
I feel like there's some kind of like, there was more give and take there. Like there was an investment in the band, obviously, to make the whole album, but there's also an investment from the consumer to your point, buy it and listen to it and like be determined to get the payout of what you just invested. So like there's just more involvement from the listener whenever you have to buy and consume an album from top to bottom.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that one's still paying off. I introduced my kids to Scary Kids the other day. That was pretty funny.
That's funny.
It was Holding On or Degenerates. I can't remember what song I turned on, and my 5-year-old boy's just in the back like this. That's
yes.
Right.
You're doing the Lord's work, Ryan Howell.
That's right.
We talked to Josh Porter from Showbread a couple of episodes back, and one of the things that he brought up as part of the conversation is that something that people of faith are missing is the discipline of art appreciation. And kind of what you just said of like the expectation of I'm going to, get in my car, drive to a store, spend my money, and then I'm going to have a thing, like a physical object that I'm going to have to keep up with. And I'm going to be expected to open it up and take it out and look at the artwork and look at the lyrics. And it's art appreciation, isn't it? Like forced art appreciation. And now you don't have to do any of that.
Nope. Because it's all written. I don't even want to say that, but like it's written for you now, for your convenience versus, you're spot on. We interact with it so much differently now.
We do. This is touching on some of the stuff that you wrote about, so I can see we're getting ahead of ourselves as we always do. We've learned to hit the record button pretty early on after logging on, because we suddenly realize, we haven't introduced anything and we're already talking about stuff. Oh my goodness. Okay, so maybe some introductions. Can you tell us your name and a little bit of your background as a musician and an artist and all that kind of stuff?
Sure. I am Nao Glover. I'm based in St. Louis. I started music, music's always been a part of my life. My dad was in a big hair 80s band. And
excellent.
So music was always a part of my life. And it wasn't, it was Aerosmith and Ozzy and Elton John, all the greats.
Yep.
And then I started in about 6th grade playing guitar. Played with my youth band, learned a lot just by watching other musicians, became a bassist, as we just talked about, because we needed a bassist, and started leading. And then just as I got older, just kind of wanted to take it a step further. It was either going to be art school or music school for me. So both in Memphis for some reason. I ended up at a small private music school in Memphis and went for one major and completely switched it. Ended up getting a degree in songwriting with an emphasis in vocals, where I went to get a degree in worship with an emphasis in guitar. So completely changed my route. But that was after, I took a few music theory classes. My music theory professor's like, you should go out for songwriting.
Whoops.
Okay. So that was fun. And it was totally the right call. I just didn't know it at the time.
Same thing happened to me in that I went in for business and ended up in speech, and that worked out much better.
Yeah. Well, hand in hand.
Yes, it is. It's all the same thing. Just moving ideas around. It's all the same
right.
stuff.
So after that, I kind of I kept going with my degree, obviously. Started a band, got really involved in the Memphis metal scene. It's a wonderful, eclectic group of really tight people, and I miss them all dearly. The pandemic really hit them hard. But anyway, after graduating, I wanted to stay involved in the music industry any way I can, or any way I could. So I got an internship at a small music PR firm, working with Americana artists of all things, but whatever, it was still experience. And that's when I started writing for HM. Mm-hmm. And that's, I've been doing that ever since. I still love it to this day. Really got involved even further in the music industry. I went on tour with Convictions. That was both of our first tour. So that was special.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just talked to Mike not too long ago, and we talked about that tour, how it was their first too. Also, sorry if you hear my dog.
Sorry if you hear mine.
Yeah. And then from there, just kind of wanted to branch out and do my own thing. I learned a lot in the marketing industry, paying the bills, but, and I guess education-wise, I kept going. I had some life experiences in my undergrad, getting my songwriting degree, that kind of pushed me towards apologetics. It was just a really expensive crisis of faith, is what I call it.
That's a good that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, and it really was life-changing. I would do it all over again for the rest of my life if I could, because I majored in cultural apologetics. So we really learned about how to engage with culture, art, and all the humanities,
Oh, yeah.
And I really got to see music, and especially the music that I love, in a new light. And my faith was totally transformed. Not that it was ever in a bad place. It's just in a more refined place now. And I think that has kind of just tied into everything that I do now in music. So yeah, that's kind of my brief synopsis.
It's interesting. Ryan and I have talked about this. Well, maybe we haven't actually, now that I think about it. But I suppose I came awake to what I sort of intellectually believed in kind of late teens, as many people do, when you first start wondering why about life, And so my questions and kind of search and learning more about God and the scriptures and what have you was inextricably tied to music, because it was the songs that were helping me ask the questions a lot of the time. And in some cases, the lives of the artists that were causing me to ponder, well, why are we doing what we're doing here? What does this mean? Is this real? All that kind of stuff. Ryan, I can't remember if we've talked about that. What did that look like for you?
Yeah, I think we probably have a little bit. I can echo that quite a bit. And part of it was listening to things that caused you to think more. There's a lot of even being in church and worship music now, sadly enough, that it's just feeding you everything and expecting you to, use that to shape what you believe. But when you're not having to think, is it really you believing it, or are you just communicating something, regurgitating what you've been told? And so I think, a lot of the music, I mentioned As Cities earlier, but some of the stuff they wrote used to really make me think. Yeah. I remember just sitting there and just like, even in my car, just sitting in the driveway listening and just being like, wow,
Yeah. I remember even listening to stuff like Brand New, The Devil and God Are Raging Inside Me. Like even albums like that are, so far from the church scene, but just thinking how much those get to you.
Yeah. And
you.
Yeah. And good art, regardless of kind of what end it falls on, is going to make you think. Now, we may come to different conclusions based on our experiences and our kind of spiritual beliefs, but it's going to make you ask questions and think through things differently.
Right. And I love what you said about if you don't have to think in church, then, what are we doing?
Yeah.
And it's so hard to engage with the church right now, honestly, because there's just that lack of, I don't know. I don't want to hate on it too hard. I just the curiosity is not bad. The doubt is not bad. And the fact that music is that instrument that unlocks doubt, which leads to truth.
Yeah.
That's just everything. So I wish there were more of it.
I've thought it odd that Deuteronomy 6 is the Shema, love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul and all your mind. If he mentions the mind there, it's probably important. we've talked about before, and the scriptures as a work of art are so intricately designed, like especially in the original language, all the wordplay and the poetry and what the authors expect their audience to keep up with, and all the hyperlinks back to other things. We've talked about this in a few different episodes, but just this is a thinking person's religion, if I can put it that way, if you like. And if you don't engage your mind, it's like your faith is not going to be real, or it's going to be all based on emotion and feeling, and it's not going to be connected to the depth that God wants it to be connected to.
Yes. Yeah. And like even to the point of being sub-creators, the mind of God, well, it's not just unknown, it's unknowable in some regards. And like embracing that, and like that's not to say that we're supposed to not think and try to figure out who God is. So yeah, I feel like everything you're saying, I'm just all about it.
Well, it seems from what we see in the scriptures that he wants to be known. God does. He wants us to know him as much as we are able, and he extends invitations of all different kinds for us to engage with him as much as we are able. And it seems like that our lives and our art should reflect that then.
Yeah. And the faculty of the imagination, that's what it does. Mm-hmm. So to explore it in that way is divine inherently.
You're referring to your thesis now.
I guess so.
So some of what you just said is summarizing a lot of what is in your master's thesis, which is on, everybody go to her website, sundaymorningmisfit.com. There's some good stuff there.
It's incredible. I told Taylor when I jumped on, I was like, having read it, I realized I'm not as intellectual as I thought I was, because trying to it's very well done. But man, sitting and just thinking through that, and I don't know. It was awesome. I'm going to read it like 2 or 3 more times probably, but you did very well on that.
Thank you. I had great guidance.
So for those who don't have it in front of them, can you briefly kind of take us through some of the more major points of that thesis?
I can try. Wow.
And I wrote down some quotes from it, but give us a 30,000 feet overview.
So I guess the big picture is that art itself is divine, because we are the product of the divine artist. And music, or any kind of art, film, literature, anything you really want to get into, is a result of that process that humans adopt from God, which is the imagination and logic and thinking through things. So when it comes to, I guess, let's talk specifically music. There doesn't necessarily have to be explicit Christian lyrics or an explicit outpouring from me to God for that to be considered worship or divine, because it is all divine. Mm-hmm. Everything in the world that is good is touched by God, because it is all a result from him. So I guess as an artist who has connected in my life more to, I will use the term secular art.
That's a whole other conversation, isn't it?
It sure is. It sure is. But for the sake of this conversation, I've just always felt like worship music there's so much more. And it's not about changing direction. It's about expanding the scope. It's about expanding the scope to all of human experience.
That's good.
If you consider pain or doubt as an authentic human experience, why would that be not an act of worship to God?
Shoot.
Because he can handle it, first of all.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think he, throughout all of Scripture, has honored it. Look at David in the Psalms.
Yeah, some of those are super dark. And what's interesting about some of them is that some of them are dark and don't have a coda, if you will. Some of them are just like, this sucks. The end. And like, there's no redemption. There's no second movement. It's just, this is an expression and this is all I've got right now. But it's in there.
Yeah. And the experience of going through pain, possibly without a coda, even for a time, it's, I hate to like make a pop culture reference, but like, have you seen the movie Collateral Beauty?
I have not. Is that Will Smith?
It's with Will Smith. Yep. And that is essentially it. I think about all of the pain and I think, would I trade it? No, I don't think I would. Because not only does it, define who we are and all of that, but it allows you to see the world in more vivid color. And it develops empathy and, all of that James 1 stuff, perseverance, character, all the stuff that we hate to read about because it hurts. But the act of creativity in itself, without any kind of connotation, is a reflection of divine creativity directly from God.
Yeah. That's something that we talked about with Josh, because he has a book about art that's coming out, hopefully this next year. He wasn't sure about the release, but one of the things that he's argued for years is that like all of anything creative belongs to God only. The enemy does not come up with anything new. All he does is twist what's there. And so that if you look at somebody like, he uses the example of Marilyn Manson a lot because it's such an obvious example, or, put whatever artist or filmmaker or whatever in there who make explicit or shocking art of whatever kind. Well, really you have a problem with their content, not with how well they execute it, but their ability to execute comes from the creator, not like, This is Robert Johnson didn't sell his soul to the devil so he could play guitar. He just played guitar. That's a dumb joke. Never mind. But that I remember when I was younger, there was a lot of concern, and I think there probably still is, but there was a lot of concern and a lot of us versus them about secular versus sacred art, and that you don't need to be putting this in your head, and these people are trying to influence you. And a lot of the time, as is, I'm guessing is your experience, you meet these folks and it's like, I don't know, man, I just wrote a song about what happened to my grandma, and I happen to want to scream it rather than sing it. And that, that's not to say that there aren't folks with agendas out there or what have you, but it's just, I don't even know where I'm going with that. It's hard to put it all into words, isn't it?
It sure is. I mean, you saw I had to write a whole thesis about it, and I still don't feel like it's done. But I was going to say, like, one of my favorite genres of film is horror. And in my film class during my master's program, we talked about, like Scott Derrickson, for example, as a director. He did Exorcism of Emily Rose and Sinister, a couple of those. And the fact that he's so bold in engaging with evil, that's hard to reconcile in some Christian circles. But I guess people ask me all the time, why do you like horror? That's just so dark. Like, why do you want to fill your mind with that? And like, to me, I don't know if y'all are Enneagram people, but I'm a 5, and that I want to know. And I like to see people's interpretations of evil, because if we don't know what it is, and if we don't engage with it, and if we just like put blinders on, how are we going to know how to fight it?
Yeah.
Or, how do we know the true magnitude of God's goodness if we don't see the magnitude of the darkness?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I have a similar thing. Like, I have a little bit of a fascination with cults. Like, not because I want to start one necessarily, but it just allows you to see how people can even start with these like noble underpinnings of an idea even, and it becomes something so self-focused and evil, to go back to that word. But
yeah, it's true. I also have a fascination with cults.
Y'all gonna have to start another podcast.
That's right.
But what's interesting, what you just described is the same reason why we don't read Ezekiel or we don't read Lamentations. I mean, when's the last time that you heard somebody go through that? Or even stuff like Leviticus or the gnarlier parts of Scripture that are less easily condensable to an Instagram quote or to a 3-point sermon or what have you.
Yeah, and or the parts of the Old Testament that showcase, God's wrath.
Yeah.
Even. Like that's a hard one. The problem of pain, and that is like the number one reason people don't believe in God.
Yes. Or reconciling Jesus with Yahweh, if I can put it that way, is a problem that a lot of people have. And because we don't go near that stuff, we don't know how to answer those questions or think about that stuff.
Right. And something that I've learned even through writing all of this, I learned that the more that I learn, the less I know.
Yes.
And I've found a tremendous peace, not even just peace, but like grounding in what I don't know. Because, if we knew everything about God, he wouldn't be a very big God, and humanity could replicate and mess it up somehow.
Yeah. I remember something my wife said to me years and years ago that I actually, I didn't get it at the time. I was inclined to argue, not necessarily argue. I just wasn't there yet. But she said, if everything you needed to know about God was in the Bible, then you wouldn't need him. Basically something along those lines. And I was like, well, wait a minute. But thinking about it, it's like, well, God is a person. The Bible testifies to his character. It's a collection of things that were written down. It is not him. It's not the same thing. It's holy and sacred and inspired and all those things. But it's like there's a person behind. There's a reality of a real God behind all that we're trying to get to. Yeah,
and there's some of the best advice that I was ever given was by a vocal coach of mine, of all people, who, like, I was going through a loss and having a really hard time reconciling the fate of that person, I guess. And she said very simply, choose to believe in the best possible outcome, because that is who your God is. And that's not to dismiss, his justice.
Yeah.
That's just to say, for all that we grieve, he grieves more. And so for all that we hope and fight for the best, he does that more.
Yeah.
You wrote something in your thesis. I'm going to read it so I don't mess it up. But you wrote, just as God makes himself known in creation, creativity is the way to receive Christian truth. By taking part in an active pursuit of God's image as creators, we can begin aligning our personal purpose with our creational purpose of recognizing and bringing him glory. I think that's a big part of it, because I think for years, and this even creeps into the church, but we almost feel like things are supposed to work out for our good, or to make our name known. And that's not what the Bible says, right? It's about his glory, about making him known. And so I think those are two different lenses that really change the way we perceive things that happen.
Yes. There's one worship song that I'm thinking of right now that you totally just hit on how I feel about it. I don't remember what it's called even, but completely.
Yeah. Very, very me-focused kind of a thing, or?
Yeah, just the making all things work together for my good.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's plural. It's plural in Greek. Right. It's not singular. And I think that's an important distinction. So that's actually one of my favorite passages, partially because it gets beat up so much. But it's not God works all things together for good or for my good. The first part of that is God works. So which summarizes what you just said, is that not all things are well. There's the reason that God has to have justice is because there's things that need setting right that are not currently right. You raise your head and look around at the society in which you live, wherever that is, and there's stuff that is wrong, that is not God's will, in the sense that, like, it's bad and it's evil and there's pain and suffering and all that stuff. And that was never God's intent for us to experience, but he is at work bringing the best, as you put it, bringing the best possible outcome out of those things. And that's more hopeful than God just zaps things and they are the way they are, to me anyway.
Yeah, well, and even in a logic sense, like he won't work outside of the confines that he has defined himself in whatever ways he has defined himself. So, if there's something about the character of God and then an evil happens that is directly opposed to that, he's not going to change who he is because of it. So he has to work miraculously, out of himself versus changing who he is.
That reminds me when he tells Moses his name in Exodus, and he says, there's a couple of different ways you can translate that, but one of them is, what I am, I will be.
Yes.
And that the Hebrew spoken in the third person, Yahweh is he is. And it's different in the first person. But like the nature of his character, like you can bank on this. You can expect me to be what I've said that I'm going to be.
Yeah.
There's a lot that you talked about in sort of the introduction part of your thesis where you're sort of laying the groundwork for everything, but you talk a lot about the holiness of imagination, if I can put it that way, which really resonates with me because my imagination is mostly where I live, or when I started to become myself, whatever that means, it was through that lens. So as a kid, I spent a lot of time playing by myself and reading, honestly, and it was things like Calvin and Hobbes by Bill Watterson, honestly, was a big part of it. Or my parents used to read the Little House on the Prairie books to us. And both of those things, it's like, well, I've never been to these places, so I have to imagine what it would be like. I've never lived like this, so I have to go there in my head. And it seems like, can you talk more about kind of what you mean by what you were talking about, imagination there?
Yeah, I think mostly it's... imagination is not a result of something. It's a faculty of connecting or forming thoughts and actualization, like even if you're not talking about something creative, it's like if you look at a wall in front of you, it's your imagination that puts those pieces together to understand what it does and what it is. And so I guess like to interpret the world around us, which has been created for us, it requires the imagination in every sense. And I think some people think that I'm not an imaginative person or I'm just straight logic. It's like, no, your logic is imagination. Like that's what it's doing. And I guess kind of to your point, I think back to teaching songwriting. There's a lot of abstractions that young songwriters, including myself, would cling to. We want to talk about things like love, or we want to talk about things like pain. And it's like, okay, but if you're going to communicate that, can you give someone an image, something to hold on to that they can say, oh, I know what that is. Maybe they've never experienced love the same way. But if you describe love in terms of your senses, like your sight, your touch, smell, all that stuff, then that's like a direct connection because they've probably seen whatever you're talking about, even if it's not direct.
So our last interview was with a guy named Andy Ziff, who his album, How to Make a Paper Airplane, just came out. I think it was this past week. And boy, did he lay himself bare on this one. But so many of the songs on that album use such concrete imagery. Like it's sometimes difficult to listen to because he has a song on there called You Won't Need Your Glasses Anymore about the death of his father. And the precision with which he puts you in that hospital room while his family is singing hymns as his dad is passing. I mean, like it's a tabernacle kind of experience to interact with art that is presented at that level. I mean, like I on the day it came out this past week, I was doing housework and I played it on my headphones and I had to honestly, I had to stop and get choked up a couple of times while I'm, folding towels or whatever I was doing because it's so it so powerfully put me in those moments that he was experiencing.
Yeah, and that's some of the best songwriting that I've encountered is, a very small moment. Like it's not a song that tries to cover the entire gospel story by the time you get to the bridge. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not that. It's like, let's pause and capture this feeling or this experience in detail. And that connection, the focus on like transferring that to another person is like taking the imagination even one step further.
Yeah. There's another quote from your thesis here that I'm going to read that I think makes this point. Without reality, imagination would have no canvas on which to paint. And I think it's somewhat the tendency to think of creative work and people who live in their imaginations. I think there's a tendency on the part of some others to almost be like, that's frou-frou stuff. We don't need that. That's, it's not practical. What is it useful for? It doesn't help me. It doesn't put food on the table, what have you. But I think good art, and the scripture is good art, is deeply rooted in the reality of the human experience.
Yes. I think absolutely. I don't know if I have much to add to that.
Well, you wrote it, so I'm just reading it back to you.
Yeah, well, I mean, you just summarized it exactly what I was trying to say.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's like there's the old thing of like, oh, I just want to escape into this movie or into this song or whatever. And for me, it's very rarely escape. It's sometimes more real.
Yeah, you want to be found. Like you want to see yourself there or feel something, even if it's like, I feel like whenever we say we want to escape, it's more like we want to feel something different. It's not like, what does it really mean to escape?
Yeah.
We want something else.
Yeah.
Well, and sometimes even it's things that are inside us that we don't realize are there. I think you mentioned a George MacDonald quote in the thesis that kind of talked about that. The best thing we can do is not give someone something to think about, but to, how's it worded?
I got it here.
Basically arise things that are within them.
The best thing you can do for your fellow, next to rousing his conscience, is not to give him things to think about, but to wake things up that are in him, or say to make him think things for himself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think for a long time we've just been kind of, and I made the point earlier, so I don't want to rehash it necessarily, but just want to give people things so that they know what you're trying to say. Well, maybe it's not about what you're trying to say. Maybe it's about more than that, and something that's, they need to feel differently.
Yeah, and I think there's like, the inherent truth of God is there. And it's kind of like therapy. Everyone wants their therapist to just give them the answers, and they're not going to do that because it doesn't matter unless it is actualized in your own reality and existence and experience. So the same is true for faith. Like something that we did so much, like I took a communications class, and everyone's like, okay, cool, we're going to learn how to talk to people about Jesus. But like 90% of that class was learning how to listen.
Yeah.
And how to like not be uncomfortable with someone's lack of belief, because there's so much experience that goes behind everyone's belief system, whether it's ours or someone who, claims atheism. Like there's a reason that they got there, or the reason that they never experienced something different. So like, when are any of us open to someone beating us on the head?
Yeah. Well, and I think
it's not fun, is it?
I think it's well intentioned. We've talked about this a lot, that most folks, most Christians, I think, mean well, and
Totally.
that if you wrote down like, do you want to see people come to Christ? Do you want people to feel loved? All these things. Of course, they're going to say, well, yeah, of course. And so it's not a lack of intent. It's that the method is pointed in the wrong direction. And so that example you just gave, your goal is not to convert somebody. Your goal is to love somebody. And the Holy Spirit, hopefully, will jump in and do the rest, because, you can't, you summed it up better than I could. There's no need for me to keep talking.
Well, it's hard to think about you mentioned that 90% of it was listening. It's so hard to do that when we feel like we have the answers, or, oh, let me tell them this because this will fix their problem. And sometimes we have no clue. And it
Yeah.
may be that that's not what they even need right now. They just need someone to
Right.
listen and to help them process things.
When you think of the things in our spiritual lives as believers that muse, whatever stirs up further faith or like deeper exploration of who God is, it's not someone telling us, it's a song or a movie or whatever. It's tapping into our experience as a human being, because we as puny little humans can't think outside of that, so we have to relate it back to our experience. So, and even if you're just stripping it down to basic conversation between a believer and a non-believer, common ground, that is where it is fertile for more, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, and we mentioned kind of the divide of secular versus Christian music, but I mean, if you try and separate everything that much, it's going to be hard to find that common ground. The whole me versus them kind of thing. And music and art and creativity should be a place where we can find that, not further divide,
Right.
the spectrum.
Yeah. Yeah, perfectly stated. My favorite band is Under Oath. They will always be.
Yeah.
And something that I read a lot in interviews by them in their latest kind of chapter, I guess, is that, we never intended to go be a poster child for religion. We were just guys who loved to make music.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's so many bands right now who feel the weight of that. It's like we're musicians first before we're spokespeople.
Yeah.
And sure, if we believe certain things, it's going to come out in our music. But why do we need a label for it? Why can't it just be like the inherent act of making music is divine? Is that not enough? To whatever it speaks to is going to be human experience, which at least to my understanding is valuable to God.
Yeah. Well, and I think we're so quick to put that on people. I listened to an interview with Emery, and I'm sure a lot of bands can echo this, but they talked about, being there trying to play art and sing songs, and there's someone in the crowd going, say Jesus, say Jesus. And it's like, why do you need to use the band as your megaphone? Like,
right.
You've got inherent thoughts too that you can use to affect people. Don't push that on them to try and do what you may need to do as a believer,
Yeah. Some of the best shows that I've ever played, I talked to Mike from Convictions about this. We played a satanic biker bar in Georgia.
Wow, excellent. That's great.
It was one of the most powerful experiences because I guess the label was out of the way. The people in there weren't like, hail Satan whenever we were there. They were just having a good time, and they were there to listen to music. We were there to play some music. And then by the end of it, we had a really good conversation with this guy. He came up, he crashed his bike. So he was all like, he was a mess that night. And then just came up and started talking to me about this vision that he had earlier in his life. It was very powerful. And it wasn't necessarily like, hey, let's get this guy saved. Because at the moment it was just like, he's bearing his soul. And like, what a courageous thing to do. And that's enough right now. And I feel like God is here, and it's not my job.
Yeah.
Well, I think about what Paul says. I forget which letter this is in, but like, some plant, some water, some harvest. And you're probably not going to be doing all of those things in 20 minutes, of meeting somebody. And that's not to say that like, that's not to say that, say, a quote sermon from stage can't be effective, but what is going to be more effective is in whatever the circle of influence is. It's probably going to be more powerful after the show, with one or two people. But anyway, that band is in town for one night, and they'll be back in 6 months or 8 months or 2 years or whatever. And the folks who are going to probably have a lot more impact on the people who are at that show are the folks that they live with. Now, that's not to say a seed can't be planted at the show, or that it can't be watered at the show, or even that a harvest can't happen, but probably the whole process is not going to be right there. You were talking about kind of that era. I guess it was about 20 years ago now. Gosh, we're
Oh
old.
my gosh.
I think part of what that, because I remember participating in this, of that drive to, you got to be up front with your faith. You got to be bold. You got to tell people why you're here and let them know that you're here for Christ or what have you. I think a lot of it was well-intentioned, because like bands were going out into areas that the church had never been okay with them going out. Yeah. And it's like, okay, well, as long as you're missionaries, I guess we're kind of okay with it. I mean, don't bring any of them in here, by God. But so it's another well-intentioned thing, I think, in that, like, and we're all freaking 17, 18, 19 years old. None of us knew any better. It sounded good to us. We get to go, play shows in some of these places and feel like that it means something and it matters. And I think just a lot of people got swept up in that, and it chewed some of us up and spit us out, unfortunately.
Yeah, I feel like there was also, like, it's not even to say that time of being very explicit about your faith, it's not even to say that was wrong for the time. Mm-hmm. I guess it's also for me about being aware of in addition to being aware of individuals and where they're at and what they're ready to talk about or to hear. Mm-hmm. It's also being aware of where culture is at and listening in that way. There's a lot of factors that play into where our culture is right now, and it's in so much distress that, like, and you think about it as an individual. If someone's in this much distress, they've been isolated for like how many years? Yeah. And there's war and death and so much toxicity in the media. Like, there's just so much that's happening. How, if that were a person going through all of that, how would we approach them?
Yeah, hopefully gently.
Yeah. And so I guess that's like, you wouldn't be upset with someone who's angry about a loss. So with some of these bands, they've gone through loss and they're just expressing their grief. So if your faith is reliant on that band's portrayal of faith, it's like you're putting it in the wrong thing, Mm-hmm.
It's interesting. Like, I know people that have had that reaction to bands that they have followed, who either no longer follow or their faith morphed or what have you. And I think there's a difference in disappointment that somebody whose journey really meant something to you and really paralleled your own or gave you a window into yourself or into who God was, and now it seems like they're not on that path. That's disappointing. An example of that, I'll give one. An example of that for me is Thrice. Love Thrice. Mm-hmm. But where Dustin Kinsrew as a person is in this season of his life, I do not relate to what he's saying, and nor why he's saying it. I think there's, without getting too far off into that, I think there's some, partially because of his life experience coming out of the church situation he did. I think he's missing a few things, but that said, like, I don't suffer a loss of faith because of that. I don't need him to be on the straight and narrow to have a relationship with God. It's disappointing. I wish I could relate to what he's very strongly feeling in his life right now, but I don't.
Yeah. And you can still have compassion for him as a person from the other side. Like, I actually wrote a blog post about when Under Oath came, out with their last album, about how much heat they caught from that. And it's like, they're human beings, man. Yeah. Like, even if they're not in a place that we find good, don't we believe that God's not done with people? You know?
Yeah, for sure. And I'll have to go have another cup of coffee and think about that.
Well, there's so much to be said for context. And kind of to your point, understanding where people are, because maybe there's a place where it's because there's nothing wrong with being bold about your faith, right? But there's places where saying that's going to completely shut you off from everybody who's there. And then you completely lose any microphone you did have, for to share or to communicate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I completely. I remember going to see them after all of that, and Spencer was on stage. He didn't say a thing about the Christian industry or Christians in general. He was really, he just wasn't going to go there, and I respected that a lot. But also, he just was kind of opening up about his experience and where he came from and how much he was in pain and needed help, and how his friends, who are also from a faith background, rallied around him. And I just remember like thinking, I'm just so thankful you're alive. And I'm thankful that you have another chance to be on the stage, and I have another chance to hear you bare your soul, because that act of you putting your soul out there is feeding my faith, no matter where yours is.
That's a hard take to have now.
Yeah.
Because like there have been times I've been frustrated with Dustin Kinsdrew and people in a similar situation, because I feel like sometimes some of the choices they're making is about constructing a faith of convenience, and I think we all do that at times. If I can, like, there's a lot of talk going around right now. There's kind of a back and forth like between John Cooper of Skillet and Phil Vischer, and there's a lot of conversation around deconstruction and whether it's good and how you should do it and where and all that kind of stuff. And we did a series of episodes that kind of touched on some of that, and that we kind of saw that there were two kinds of deconstruction. That one is deconstructing your faith, which is, is God real? Is the Bible real? All that. But then the other is deconstructing your religion, which is what's up with Christianity, what's up with church, and the way that we've done things. And either of those are on the table, really. And I think it comes down to what your intent is, because I do think that there is a strain, a group of folks, a thought tribe, what have you, that is more interested in just kind of getting away with whatever they can and still feeling religiously good about themselves. I think that does exist. But I also think that there are a lot of folks who don't understand, who have been hurt, who have not been taught well, who have not been loved well. And those are legitimate things they're trying to make sense of. And so I don't know that it pays to lump everybody into the same basket in that way.
Yeah, I totally agree. That's a whole
That's another 3 hours
other conversation, man.
Yeah.
That's the dissertation.
Okay. I'm here for that. But it relates, though, I think, to so you have a blog post on your website called Sunbleached, the Overexposed Worship Generation, I think is the full title. And that basically that a lot of the kind of stuff that we were just talking about is a result of unrealistic expectations being put on people who are on those stages, which is kind of what we've been talking about. So can you wax eloquent about that post and kind of what was going on in your head when you wrote it?
Oh gosh. I think when I wrote that, there was something going on in Memphis that hit national news about a pastor who had kind of fallen a little bit in a big way. But and I guess I just kind of felt the weight of that, because I've interacted with a lot of pastors and people who are in direct line of fire, if you will, in ministry. And there is just so much weight put on them. And I don't know that there's a way to combat that perfectly, because we look to leaders, we look to bands, even we look to any kind of influences to help shape our own faith. And it makes me think of the Ravi Zacharias incident that came up. And Levi the Poet actually has a lot of great insight on a lot of this stuff. He wrote a blog post that was really challenging to a lot of people about that situation. Just
not
kind
surprising
of
coming from him.
I know. I love him. So it kind of made me think about where do we really put our stock in our faith? If any one person has influence on our faith, we are responsible for keeping that in perspective with who we really worship. You know, just
Son
like you
of a-
can't, like, because
Wow.
there's only so much you can put on a leader to keep those boundaries in place. You know, I've known some pastors who are great at boundaries, and I really respect that. But also, I just can't help but feel like I'm so sorry, because I find myself attaching to them. And like, you know, whenever you have a favorite pastor and then the other pastor comes to preach for a Sunday, you're like, you know, that whole feeling. It's back to that consumer mindset. Like, it's about serving me, making me feel comfortable, or making me feel the kind of intellectually stimulated that I want, you know, and it's just really easy to get caught in that. Does that help answer your question? I don't know if I haven't read that blog post in a long time.
Well, let me read a quote from it, if I may. Okay. This is specifically about worship leaders, but it could read just leaders in the church. Worship leaders are expected to have no boundaries, much like preachers, and rather than teaching those who are qualified in skill and knowledge in the ways of healthy vulnerability and true leadership, we'd rather choose the ones who are louder, outwardly charming, and attractive. Sometimes that means we overlook qualities that could be harmful for that person or for the congregation, and we focus on their, quote, leadership skills. In many cases, we've exchanged healthy boundaries for uncontrolled emotion, exchanged meekness for ungrounded passion, and exchanged true leadership for the ability to woo a crowd and put on a good show.
Okay, yeah, now I got what you're saying.
Hot dang, girl.
Oh, man, I think I had some anger when I wrote that, not going to lie.
Well,
so.
There's such thing as righteous anger, right?
Yeah.
We've talked a lot about the prophetic critique, and that how a lot of art in Christianity doesn't have it.
Yeah.
Sorry, continue.
No, it's just all coming back to me now. I think we mistake a lot passion for something being ordained. Or, you know, just like dictated by God.
Yeah.
And it takes me all the way back to C.S. Lewis, The Abolition of Man. He writes about untrained emotion and how it's dangerous. Because we are created as emotional beings, but it has to be tempered, you know, and leadership is not just having the stage and having a loud voice, and even being able to be eloquent about it. You know, there's so much more. Again, the ability to listen and the ability to sit down and change course whenever it's not, when the plan needs to change, depending on needs. So I feel like it's a lot of anticipating needs, and I feel like those skills in leadership are kind of canceled by whatever a congregation responds to. You know, so we say, like, if a congregation, if a moment happened in church, we call that a success. Yeah. But what if it's not? You know, what if it's a distraction?
Yeah.
Well, and I think we have to be careful, because a true leader is someone who's going to help to expand your faith in God, whereas some of these who are in the woo crowd, to use that word, it's someone who can win others over, may just be winning that faith to themselves. And to the point earlier, then they mess up, our faith falls, and who is our faith really ever in?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes.
Well, one of the things I think is that we mistake enthusiasm for passion. They're not the same.
Yeah.
In that passion is like that deeply rooted, I do not care, this is me, and I'm going for this. Music is like that for me, even though I don't get to do as much of it. Like, it's in my blood, and as far as I know, it's never going anywhere. And I know other people, and this isn't being critical, but they played in bands, and they did that for a time, and they enjoyed it, and then they were done with it. Or maybe the same thing like with people who made movies, or people who wrote when they were in college, or whatever the creative faculty they had was, and then they moved on to something else. But like for me, the enthusiasm for putting on the show is not the same thing as passion that leads to the show, I guess.
Yeah. There's a I just looked it up to make sure I had it right, but there was a sermon by David Wilkerson called A Call to Anguish that made me think while you were talking is, maybe passion even encompasses anguish.
I think it has to.
Yeah, it does. And again, that's dangerous if you want, because it's the full spectrum of human emotion, and you don't want to just be, so broken that it distracts from the reason why you're broken.
Yeah.
But I do think that there's a common quality that I find in the leaders that I found to be really valuable to me is this underlying anguish for, I guess, humanity as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that they live sulking and sad. It's just they're aware.
No, but it's like thinking of Jesus. He looked at the crowds and he had compassion on them, for he saw that they were like waves tossed and turned by the wind. I think it's that thing, which is not the same thing as feeling sorry for somebody, but compassion is not passive. Compassion is, I see that you are in pain, and I want to not shield you from it necessarily, but I want to sit next to you while you feel it and let you know that you're not alone.
Through it. Yeah, or be there. Yeah.
And I'm just thinking, what a powerful posture of the heart for somebody who's going to stand on a stage to approach things that way. Because thinking about like entering into a church context and being very aware, like my preferences just don't matter. That is not why we're here. Who cares if you don't like the music? Who cares if you don't like whomever's up there? The only thing that matters is whether or not I'm supposed to be here or not, like led by the Spirit. Everything else, it just doesn't matter. I would like to engage with the musicians who are there. I would like to engage with whoever is teaching, but it's not necessary. The only thing that's necessary is I do what God nudges me to do. But as somebody who, not that we have time to get into this, who has much church baggage, as I think probably we all do, or much Christianity baggage, to feel like the people who have laid the table, if you will, had you in mind when they laid it.
Yeah.
I had an experience like that recently where it wasn't that everything was to my liking. It was that Spirit of God knew I was going to be here today. And these things were, I mean, it's the picture you get in the Gospels of like, go bring everybody in, go to the highways and byways and give them a seat at this table and call them by name and have them sit next to me. It was one of those kind of moments. And several of them strung together, because I could tell the people who laid this table know what we all in the highways and byways have been experiencing this week. They know, I mean, anguish is a good word sometimes for what the human experience is like. And I felt like that was baked into every loaf of bread, if you will, that was on that table. And it was a very powerful moment for me, I have to say.
It is. And you can totally tell, like people can tell. You were saying, the rest doesn't matter. And it just made me think like it's really hard to approach or to posture your own heart that way whenever you go to church, whenever it's a coffee and donut type of church where it's like, we have bookstores. And to me, I always think this, I'm like, didn't Jesus like toss tables in when we were selling stuff? Like, but so there's that, but also like, we shouldn't be comfortable at church. We should be seen, sure. But we should also be prepared to be wrecked. And, one of the most powerful experiences I had with a pastor even is he sent me an email and he could tell I got baggage, right? So, and he welcomed it and said, what is it about the Big C church that you think that you've experienced or that you think it needs or whatever. And it's not like, I'm anyone special to say that, but to strip away the marketing of the church it cut through, and that it felt like true fellowship in that moment, and church as it was intended kind of like you break down barriers between a leader and a congregation in a way that makes room for the Spirit.
And church can be art just like anything else can be.
Mm-hmm.
And there's an art to teaching well. There's an art to writing a song well, to laying a stage, to leading a team and selecting the people that are going to be welcoming. All that is art to me because it's creating something out of nothing. And the first picture of art in the scriptures is in the garden, where God says, all right, here's the whole earth. Make something happen here. If you've ever done any gardening work, it's really hard.
Yeah, it is.
Because you're looking at the wild and waste, and you're trying to bring forth something green out of it, which I think is a lovely metaphor, and not at all accidental that God chose to start the story of the Bible that way. I don't think.
Yeah, and something that stuck out to me in all of the school that I've clung to is that God has a way of creating the space and then filling it. And he does the same in church, and he does the same in music and in individuals, just creating the space first and then filling it.
And what that makes me think of is all the times throughout the history of the people of God in the Bible where we tried to do the filling.
Yeah.
Like, give us a king. No, we're not going to go up on that mountain, or whatever the case is. Well, we think we know. No. We got this. This is what needs to happen here. And he's like, okay, have fun with that. It'd be better off if you just let me do my thing. Really, that's great though.
He's so patient.
Yeah, we're thankful.
Yes.
I'm often not patient. Gosh, this is so good.
Yeah. And I even think about, kind of, again, back to the art thing and the pictures we're painting in our lives, even with our experiences. Different things affect people differently. I think a lot of times for me, it is a little more of the anguish and the fall on my face that gets my attention than the good times and when everything seems to be going well. Typically, that's when I start feeling good and God's like, hey, nope, here, give it back, and I get to experience a little bit of that.
I'm the same way.
Yeah.
I hate it, but it's true.
Yeah.
It means a lot of pain, but I'm thankful.
Yeah.
So far we haven't talked about Tolkien, and I'm afraid that if we start, we'll lose Ryan. I was just thinking there's a line in The Hobbit when they're at Rivendell where, what is it that he says? That basically good things that are nice to tell about often are quickly told, but that the stuff that's like dark and palpitating or even gruesome is often makes a better story, as it were. And I can't help but think that the art that is the Bible and the art that is our lives, or that can be our lives, it testifies to the goodness of God when we're honest about the pain that's there.
Yeah. Yep. That's why we love metal, right?
Yes. Yeah. And it's funny, like, I remember having a conversation with somebody about that. Like, what all this screaming? They just sound angry. I said, I don't hear anger. I hear passion.
Absolutely.
Yes. Yep. I was like, sometimes, even the name of Jesus, I can't sing it pretty because like the truth of the gospel is gruesome. And there's just more. And I have a visceral reaction to it. Yeah. And like it comes out louder. I don't know, man.
It's the whole beauty and chaos thing, what it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you're in good company, it would seem. Well, man, I have enjoyed the heck out of this. I'm sure we could keep on going and going. Do you want to talk any about kind of what you're doing at HM now and how that relates to a lot of what we've been talking about?
Sure. So I think, like I mentioned before we started recording, I have kind of taken over the editor duties from David Stagg. He is he's an amazing mentor and friend to me, and he's looking to hand it over and kind of like I don't know, just kind of share the wealth and the rewardingness of HM. So I've kind of taken that on. He's still very much involved, but it's been an incredible experience so far. Getting to, talk more closely with writers and to also have a way to see deeper into a band's story. You get a press release in the email, and a lot of them have like the same story. And right now everything's about, when the world shut down, we really felt, like all the quotes feel really similar. And I think actually we're starting to get out of the COVID music. And I'm kind of glad, because it's like, well, for obvious reasons, everyone's tired of talking about COVID, but also I think it was just such an emptying experience for musicians, and all these bands had to get it out, and I respect that. We got to get it out. And I want to be able to help, like, pass that on or pay it forward, however you want to say it. But now I feel like a lot of these bands are kind of refining who they are moving forward. It's kind of a defining moment in history for artists. When it was all taken away, it was like, what was your view on music before, and what is your view on music now? And all the shows that I've been to since, every single one of them is a genuine, heartfelt, I will never take this for granted again.
That's great.
And yeah, it's awesome. So anyway, back to your original question. How all this kind of plays out is I really hope to give a platform that is rooted in faith, and kind of showcase music that is just pointing to good, whether it's labeled a Christian band or not, whether it is content that is a little harder to swallow, I guess, that's packaged a little differently. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry.
That's all right.
I'm surprised mine's not barking right now.
She's a Bernese, so she's loud. Anyway, that's hopefully my goal, is to kind of expand the horizon of HM, and David did a great job of doing that. So I think the stage was set very well for me. It feels very easy for me to take up that torch, because he did such a great job. But I think all of this experience and all this research that I've done has been such a gift in being able to see into a band's story and know kind of what questions to ask them, and what points to pull out, and how to differentiate their story from the last band's story based on what they've written in the past, and kind of how they're engaging with culture now. It's given me a lot of avenues to look to pull that story out and extract it, if that makes sense.
Yes. And that's very much an artistic endeavor. Assembling the story and presenting it in that way.
Yeah. And I mean, to me, I feel so grateful to be a part of this music industry. Like, I can't even tell you how, I just can't even tell you how grateful I am to be a part of it. So being able to give back anything that I can. I get bands all the time saying, oh my gosh, thank you so much for sharing our new song. And I'm like, dude, it's literally no problem. So easy for me to do that. And I am happy to do it.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting too. We don't have to get too far into this, but when I was younger, HM was a big vehicle and a big window for a lot of people into what was happening there. It gave a lot of people, I mean, there was the platform thing as well, but I mean, there's this thing when you're trying to find art that you can relate to, it isn't just, is it good? But then there's also, will I like it? But also for people of faith, can I trust it?
Yes.
And like that's a big question, because on the one hand, I'll listen to anything, I'll read anything to a point, and I can extract something good from it. But at the same time, I want to be able to let my guard down with a piece of art and invite it into my house, as it were, and not worry that there's something else going on there. Like, I think we all can think of either films or books or songs or bands or whatever, that it's just like, I have no reservations about this. I will shout this from the rooftops, and sometimes it's difficult to know, okay, is this going to be one of those things? How do I find those things? Who can I trust to bring me to those things? And for many years, for a lot of people, HM served at least some of those functions, I think.
Mm-hmm. I completely agree. I have some friends who were like, oh my gosh, I should get the print copy. And I'm like, I would love to do print.
Yeah.
So we got to monetize it first, but I would love to do print.
I'd like a print version too.
I know, I would too. And I also feel like I should add that like HM is a collaborative force. I feel really relieved that it's not all on my shoulders, and because even everything that we've been talking about, who knows if I'm right. I feel like I think about it a lot. So I don't feel, I guess I feel passionate about contemplation.
Mm-hmm.
And I am really thankful that there are writers like you who bring their own opinions to the magazine, and we have a team. We have the podcast guys, Colin and Mason, and we bring other people in. We bring artists in because I feel like that is the spirit of HM, and it always has been.
Mm-hmm.
So that is really what I hope to preserve.
Yeah, I noticed that I never made it to Cornerstone, unfortunately. And there was a big hole left in all of our lives, because even if you never went, you felt it. You felt its influence and its reach. And HM was like that too, I think. There are those kind of pillars of whatever community you're in that help administer the culture and all that kind of stuff. And I noticed that, so Furnace Fest came back last year, and the response has just been insane. But I noticed that even this year already, people are already talking about it. I saw that Blindside is playing. Oh my gosh. It's been more than 10 years since I've seen them. I'm going to go. Anyway, but I can't help but think that, like you said, that there seems to be a moment that's rumbling closer where some of these like fires that have kind of sunk down and have been smoldering for a lot of people are starting to kind of puff up again. And I wouldn't be surprised if HM was an important part of that, in the same way that that Furnace Fest looks like it is, and being one of those lodestones or touch points for folks who care about some of the same stuff that we do.
Yeah, well, I'm here for it. So you're speaking that into existence. I'm backing you up.
It's not the worst idea that's ever come out of one of these conversations. Man, this was so good. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today. This has been one of the most enjoyable ones we've done, I think.
Awesome.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I've had a great time.
Excellent.
Always down for talking this stuff, even if it's not recorded.
Yeah.
Who knows? Might happen again.
That's kind of how we started. It was, we want to have these conversations, whether it's, anyone's hearing it or not. And it kind of just went from there.
Yeah. That's awesome.
As you can tell, we had a really good time with this conversation, and it was really great and meaningful and funny and entertaining and all the things that we hope that these conversations are going to be, both for us and for you all. We've got more coming up in this series. There are more people that we want to talk to and more conversations that Ryan and I want to have with just the two of us. If you have any comments or questions or ideas or anything like that, please reach out to us. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can search for Unbetween Podcast, or you can shoot us an email at unbetweenpodcast@gmail.com. Thank you for listening.